The whole world has been waiting for this. Donald Trump is now officially confirming in an interview that he's planning a strategic Bitcoin reserve. He was asked if he's planning something similar to an oil reserve, a petroleum reserve, and he clearly said yes. He also confirmed in this interview that we're going to do something great with Bitcoin. Is 2021 the starting gun for global Bitcoin FOMO? Was this the confirmation that the US will buy more than 1 million Bitcoins? Also, just a few hours ago, we officially got another Bitcoin Reserve Act confirmed in Texas. And there's the next bill now in Texas in addition to Pennsylvania. That was the big announcement for which I made a video just 24 hours ago. Something massive is going to happen in 24 hours. 2021, we now have confirmation from Donald Trump and also a double confirmation from Texas that Texas wants to implement a Bitcoin reserve strategy at the federal level. We also have a new report from Blackrock that reveals what percentage of Bitcoin allocation Blackrock recommends to its customers. What we have to look at now is super exciting. And this could be the starting gun for something really, really big. Today, we're really making Bitcoin history here. Okay, that might be a bit far-fetched because it still needs to be implemented. Donald Trump can talk a lot of nonsense. He's publicly and verbally committing to a Bitcoin reserve here. But whether he actually follows through on all of this, that's the next question. So, I'm really, really bullish if what he's saying here is actually true. If it's not true, then that would really be a shame. But he would definitely ruin the trust of the Bitcoin community massively. Let's take a look. He was here in an interview with Jim Cramer. Cramer's Bitcoin calls often reverse. So, when Jim Cramer says Bitcoin is going to the moon, then we usually drop. And when Jim Cramer says, I'm selling now, Bitcoin usually shoots up like a rocket. And I have two clips for you now. And you can clearly hear that Donald Trump is planning a reserve strategy.
You're getting into crypto unlike the last administration. It's like a strategic petroleum reserve, but for crypto.
Yeah, I think we're going to do something great with crypto because we don't want China or anyone else. It's not just China, but others are getting on board with it. And we want to be the leaders.
So pay attention. He was asked by Jim Cramer if he's planning something like a Bitcoin reserve, similar to what they have for petroleum. And he clearly says here, yes, he's planning something like that, and they're going to do something big with crypto, with Bitcoin, and they will definitely be ahead of China. So they will be ahead of China. Get ready for what's coming our way. We have confirmation about where a lot of people have been speculating whether to do this or not. He's never really addressed it so clearly before. He always beat around the bush, or Cynthia Loomis made a suggestion, and other politicians made suggestions, but to hear it straight from Donald Trump's mouth, we haven't heard it like this before. Now we definitely have the confirmation. I mean, it was kind of obvious because he was getting more and more pressure, internal pressure, since we're seeing more states opening up to Bitcoin. On the other hand, there's external pressure from places like China, Russia, and so on. We're hearing more and more nations that are leaning towards Bitcoin. Bitwise made the prediction yesterday that by 2025, we'll see twice as many states actively and publicly accumulating Bitcoin as we will in 2024. And on top of that, we have confirmation from Dennis Porter that the 8th largest economy in the world is now working on an active bill to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. He says here, I can confirm that the state of Texas has submitted a bill to officially establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. History was being made, as this was the first time a bill was being set up live in X Spaces. Okay, you can pretty much ignore whether this is happening in X or whatever. I think it's relatively irrelevant. It goes on to say that the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act, introduced by Giovanni, he's the politician here, proposes a state-managed Bitcoin reserve to strengthen Texas's financial resilience and promote digital innovations. The reserve will include the following. First, they will accept Bitcoin donations from residents of Texas. Second, they will securely store and manage Bitcoins for at least 5 years. Third, they ensure transparency through biannual reports and audits. Fourth, they allow state agencies to accept cryptocurrencies and convert them into Bitcoin. Fifth, they will set rules for security, donations, and management. Well, I still don't quite understand what is meant here. Feel free to drop a comment about how you see this exactly, because that's always the question, right? What does a strategic Bitcoin reserve really mean? But if you interpret it a bit based on the 5 points here, it basically means that the Bitcoins won't just be bought, but they'll be held for at least 5 years. Plus, it's going to bring some transparency to the whole situation. But if you interpret it a bit based on the 5 points here, it basically means that the Bitcoins won't just be bought, but they'll be held for at least 5 years. Then, of course, bring a bit of transparency into the whole situation. Of course, they should also accept donations in Bitcoin, and people should be able to pay with Bitcoin too. So, it's about more than just holding on to Bitcoin. Not only is Texas buying Bitcoin and holding it for 5 years, but you can also pay taxes and stuff like that in Texas with Bitcoin. So, because there are acceptance points here. Dennis Porter has always said that US states will implement the Bitcoin reserve strategy faster than Donald Trump will, because it seems to go through the legislature quicker in a state until such a law is actually, let's say, put into law. According to Dennis Porter, Donald Trump could only bypass this by using a state of emergency law, or what do you call it? Wow, that's right, it's called an executive order. So only if an executive order is issued by Donald Trump can he, according to Dennis Porter, implement it faster than the states. And then there are other countries getting in on this too. But it looks like Donald Trump is already pretty on the ball here. But other countries will have seen this statement too. I mean, Putin will look at this very closely. The secret services around the world will all look at it. They will all hear what Donald Trump is saying. And when he confirms in this interview that we are doing something similar to what we did with petroleum, then it clearly means, hey, we are going to buy Bitcoin and we are currently preparing to buy Bitcoin. But like I said, we should stay a bit skeptical about everything because Donald Trump can talk a big game all day long, but he needs to have the guts to follow through. Only when the first Satoshi hits the wallet and those addresses are made public can I really give the green light and get on board. Then we can say, okay, Trump, you've actually delivered on what you promised. And then we have a report that the asset manager Blackrock reports a Bitcoin 1 to 2% allocation is justified. Increasing risk. In a 60-40 portfolio, a 2% allocation boosts risk-reward ratio. Less risk, higher returns, lower volatility as Bitcoin is non-correlated. So they're saying here in a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, or the other way around, depending on how you look at it, that a 1 to 2% allocation is justified. Because there's also this thing where if you have a 2% allocation, the risk-reward ratio goes up. So you have less risk in the portfolio, the chances go up, maximum returns increase, and even the volatility goes down because Bitcoin is a non-correlated asset. But they're still being very, very conservative here. About a year ago, there was a secret meeting where they basically pitched their investors. I think it was a 28% allocation that they declared as optimal back then. There was even a report 2 years ago where they said that a Bitcoin allocation of 80% would be optimal. But now they're doing it officially, and you can't just throw out those crazy numbers in an official setting. So they're just sticking with being really conservative here at 1 to 2. I mean, that's totally fair. Just imagine 1,000, all the asset managers in the world have a 2% Bitcoin allocation or even a 1% Bitcoin allocation. What happens to the Bitcoin price then? It's unimaginable where the Bitcoin price could shoot up to. Exactly, it says here that for investors looking to include Bitcoin in a multi-asset portfolio, we outline an approach on how the allocation can be sized. How can investors think about a Bitcoin allocation? Bitcoin can't be compared to traditional assets. From a portfolio construction perspective, the Magic 7 group of mostly mega-tech stocks is a useful starting point. These stocks represent individual portfolio positions that carry a relatively large amount of portfolio risk, similar to Bitcoin. In a traditional portfolio with a mix of 60% stocks and 40% bonds, each of these 7 stocks on average contributes about the same share of the overall portfolio risk as a 1 to 2% allocation in Bitcoin. So this is the official reasoning. Yeah, that's okay, I'd say. Well, better than nothing. I mean, I'd rather have 1 or 2% than nothing at all. But of course, when you hear such bold statements like Larry Fink saying that Bitcoin is the flight to quality and that Bitcoin is, let's say, very advantageous in risky times, especially when there are turbulence and so on, that just doesn't quite fit together here. If you make statements like that, you really have to put at least 1,020% on the table. 1,000, yeah, I totally get that you want to stay a bit conservative and wait to see how investors respond to such a recommendation. By the way, if you want to buy Bitcoin, I'll drop a link for you down below. The easiest way to buy Bitcoin in Europe. Here, with the code BitcoinHotel, you can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Absolute recommendations. And now listen up. I've got a really important message for you, straight from El Salvador. From one of the coolest viewpoints in El Salvador. We've hiked up here several hundred meters, or I don't know, maybe 1,000 meters, and with Bitcoin you just have to know one thing, it's volatile, it goes down, but the long term is often difficult with Bitcoin. You just have to hang in there, you gotta shake it off. When people start saying Bitcoin has disappeared into irrelevance again, you just gotta hold on and then you can enjoy the awesome times in 2021, cashing in on all the gains. And all those people, the social media folks, the mainstream media like ARD and ZDF, they're hating on it, and all the gold bugs getting jealous, like, yeah, Michael Saylor and so on, wanting to sell off all the gold reserves in the US, they're just hating. But don't let all that chatter get to you, just keep pushing to the top. El Salvador offers an amazing view with the ocean and Bitcoin hotspots. Enjoy life and experiences over wealth. Check this out, right in front is the ocean all around here. You can see the line, it goes all the way around. One of the Bitcoin hotspots in El Salvador. It's just really, really awesome that there are such cool landscapes here in El Salvador, and you're just having a fantastic time. And that's ultimately what's important about Bitcoin. It's not about getting rich quick, but about having more time in life to have amazing experiences like this and to really soak in all the purity and all the great stuff life has to offer. You often forget that when you're constantly dealing with the loss of purchasing power through the fiat money system, inflation, theft, and being basically robbed by central banks, you end up with no time to do these awesome things here. And that's why it's Bitcoin to the moon. Let me know what you think of this amazing view. See you later, folks. Peace out.